Hi, welcome once again to Power Study Strategies, and in this particular session, I'm going to give you some tips for effective memorization. Now, suppose I were to give you a list of 20 items here on this paper and ask you to try to remember as many as possible. Chances are you're going to use either of 4 ways to remember those things. You'll most likely remember the items at the beginning of the list and also towards the end of the list. This is called the law of primacy and recency of events or information. Now, the third way by which you're going to remember things is that if any of the items here would stand out or was unusual for you. And a fourth and final way by which you remember things would be if any of the items here were repeated. Any of the items here were repeated. Items here were repeated. You get the point. So remember, there are 4 ways by which we recall data. This is also called the psychology of retention and recall. Now, this is interesting for us and also very important for students as we take a look at this graph. This is called the learning graph. Let me orientate you to this graph. Right here below is what we call the duration of time used to spend for studying or learning. And over here on the perpendicular is the area by which we chart peak retention points over the span of time. Now, if one were to commit himself to learning, let's say studying or revising a particular piece of homework, text, or even watching a teaching video over a span of, let's say, 2 hours. So this would be a 2-hour study block. Typically, what goes on in his mind is that his brain and mind is processing information and assimilating the key important points somewhat like this. This is a reflection of what goes in here. So it starts off high at this retention peak point and begins to dip somewhere towards the middle and return back high towards a peak point at the end of 2 hours. Now, of course, if there's anything in between that is outstanding or unusual, remember the third way by which we recall information, then it will be, we will remember that. That's why it's always important to highlight key important data by associating it with symbols, color, and imagery, because those things really stand out and it sticks, you see. And of course, the fourth way would be to take some information and repeat it over and over again by rote learning. Repetition is important for remembrance. But take a look at this learning curve here. Not really impressive, especially if you talk about a 2-hour study block. You've only got 2 peak retention points. Not impressive at all. How is one supposed to use this time more efficiently? Well, take for example, if you were to take a break somewhere in the middle, somewhere in the midpoint at 1 hour and come back after a few minutes and continue your study, you have effectively doubled your peak points by 2. So you've got 1 primacy and 1 recency here. You have created 2 primacies and 2 recencies. That will be slightly more effective. Now stretch that a little bit further and begin to break this whole chunk down to mini bite-sized sub-blocks of, let's say, 30 minutes each. Effectively, now you have created 4 premises and 4 recencies. Now that's really maximizing your time. So it looks something like this. 4 mini blocks. 1, 2, 3, 4. And all these will be peak retention points. You will have stretch, you will have effectively maximized your retention points. You're going to remember a lot more things in 2 hours. Now, research has shown that the optimal mini study block will be about, say, 20 to 25 minutes of focus study with 5 minutes interval. Now, during those intervals, you take a short break, like go get a glass of water or to the washroom, and then when you return back in that 5 minutes to do a review and recap of what you have done in the previous mini block. This will effectively seal your information and key points for recall later on. So this will increase the capacity of your memory as well as enrich your learning experiences. Now, I hope this is helpful for you. Remember, put this into practice. Craft for yourself study blocks of 2 hours each, with each mini block of 30 minutes with 5-minute intervals, and I tell you, you're going to see yourself study more efficiently, more effectively. So all the best for your revision and your studies and exam preparation. And don't forget to check out the other videos on power study strategies.